First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
The lawyer for Gator quarterback Treon Harris speaks out, saying people have the wrong impression of him, the alleged victim, and what happened between them last weekend. That's our top story this October 9th. I'm Taylor Nunez.
And I'm Larissa Scott. With Harris under investigation after a reported sexual assault on U.S. campus, his lawyer says Treon could be cleared of potential charges and allowed to return to his classes and the Gator football team.
Attorney Huntley Johnson says the two UF students had met before, and the young woman texted Harris while he was still in the locker room in Knoxville after the Tennessee game. After Harris got back to Gainesville after the game, according to Johnson, a person who gave them both a ride to their dorm early Sunday morning said they were smiling and holding hands. Johnson says there's evidence the young women had a sexual encounter with another man before seeing Harris in his room. It was much later on Sunday, after midnight again, when police were called in.
Provide that to the authorities. What we know is that when the alleged event occurred, it was at least 22 hours later before it was reported. So maybe that response.
Yesterday, UF released the initial police report on the incident, but only after redacting all of the officers' narrative. Today, a UF spokeswoman offered no reaction to Johnson's assertions. She just stood by UF's previous announcement of the investigation and the suspensions as both a student and athlete. Johnson says an appeal of Treon Harris's suspension as a student was only partially successful for now. He is still banned from campus but can continue his online courses.
A woman is dead after her scooter was struck by a car last night on Northwest 34th Street at western edge of U.S. campus. 51-year-old Marion Harvey was on a scooter waiting behind a truck in the left lane when a car hit her from behind.
I don't know if she was wearing a helmet or not, but with this type of crash, with this type of velocity, it really would not have done much for her, unfortunately.
We spoke to the victim's family and we'll have a look into the life of Marion Harvey and the way her family will remember her. That story is coming up on WFT's News at 6.
The Ocala Police Department is taking a special approach to fighting overnight drive-by shootings and other serious crimes.
Jessica Barreto visited the Ocala Police Department today and joins us now with the story. Jessica, tell us how this task force approach is working.
Well, the Ocala Police are really happy with the progress being made, but they say it's just the beginning. Ocala has experienced a string of violent crimes, including shootings where children were caught in the crossfire. To address the issue, the chief called for a task force to take over at nights for rapid response to both tips and crimes. The Ocala Police Department hopes this task force will make the city of Ocala a safer place.
8 officers are vigilantly patrolling the city of Ocala after dark. Split into 2 task force groups, they've voluntarily switched their regular 8-hour shifts for 12-hour overnight shifts on the road, with their sole responsibility being to chase any potential tips on violent crimes.
They're taking a proactive, aggressive approach to these violent crimes and putting a stop to it.
The teams were put together by the Ocala police chief in response to recent shootings and drug crimes. Just Monday night, a man was shot to death in his own home.
The Ocala Police Department says the task force has made a lot of progress since it first began, making over 60 arrests so far. But they're not stopping there.
It's been 20 days, but the task force will continue indefinitely until the community feels at peace.
We want our community to not walk around in fear, to not go in their homes in fear that stray bullets are going to come through windows and strike their children.
This lifetime Ocala resident looks forward to a positive change.
I do feel a lot really timid about coming out in the streets and, doing things of that nature, but once I do see results, and I feel a whole lot better.
Ocala Police encourage anyone with Crime Solver tips to try their website, where tips can be submitted anonymously. There's even an app for that for both Android and Apple devices.
DCF faces new criticism for its handling of the long-running case, which ended with the murder of 6 children last month in Bell. State advocacy groups are calling for DCF to give up its oversight of protective services to local law enforcement agencies. Currently, 6 sheriff officers are responsible for child protective services in their counties. Groups like the Children's Lobby say the experienced law enforcement investigators can do a much better job than DCF caseworkers and they're sometimes involved anyway, accompanying caseworkers for their protection.
There was some early morning fog today in north central Florida.
Now let's go to UF forecaster Tanya Bolasir to tell us if we will see fog again tonight.
We will see fog again tonight, but it's been a beautiful, warm and sunny Thursday here in north central Florida. Take a look at the camera right over UF Stadium. You'll see temperatures feeling like 94 degrees right now. Temperatures going into tonight, 76 degrees at 8 o'clock, 70 by midnight, and 66 degrees at 4 a.m. when that fog will begin to show up. That fog will begin at 4 a.m. and then by drive time, 6, 7 o'clock, it will intensify over inland areas and dissipate by 10 a.m. Stay tuned for my full weather forecast when I'll let you know if rain chances will affect your game day weekend.
U.S.-led coalition forces are bombing Islamic State positions near the Syria town of Kobani. Islamic State fighters now hold 1/3 of the city, which sits near the Turkish border. The U.S. military says in the last 36 hours, it has carried out 23 different airstrikes around Kobani. U.S. forces have attacked both tanks and troop positions. You'll get an in-depth update during the PBS NewsHour at 7.
People in St. Louis are planning protests following the fatal shooting of an 18-year-old man. Officials say the St. Louis officer was in uniform, but working an off-duty security detail. Police say the officer followed 4 men and 1 fired shots on the officer. The officer shot back, killing the man.
It ended up into the gangway, at which time the young man pulled a weapon and shots were fired. The officer returned fire. And unfortunately, the young man was killed. And that's what we have about right now.
The officer was hurt. The officer was not hurt. The shooting will be scrutinized in the wake of the Ferguson case. The threat of Ebola is not only worrying travelers, but also airline employees. Workers who clean airplane cabins at LaGuardia Airport walked off the job over safety concerns. One concern is the lack of protection against possible exposure to Ebola and other infectious diseases. The striking workers are employed by AirServe to clean Delta planes at LaGuardia. Much more to come on WFT News First at 5. It's the season for haunted houses, so what does it take to run one from your own property? Find out after the break.